I don't think it could have gone any better. I mean, he's just been outstanding. He loves the game. He wants to be great. He's in a great room with guys like Zach Martin and Tyron Smith and that crew. So, I mean, what more can you ask? I mean, he's, like you said, he's young. He's versatile. He proved that. He didn't play a left tackle in training camp and stepped right up and did it. So, I mean, obviously fired up about his future.
What does that do for Tyron Smith moving forward? What sort of conversations have you had about what his future looks like in Dallas?
We really hadn't yet. I mean, we're obviously getting our hands around the best way for us to move forward. When we got a guy like Terrence Steele coming off a major injury. Obviously, Tyron was ultimate team player to raise his hand, said I want to move over and help the team at right tackle. That's what he played in college. I mean, I think he's comfortable there. But, it's a good problem to have. I mean, in this league, you look at offensive line injuries and, all the challenges that teams have. I guess the biggest takeaway from our meetings was you can't have enough of these guys. I mean, you need these big offensive linemen if you want to protect your quarterback, which all 32 do, then you can't have enough of these guys. So, there's really not a lot of conversation to have with Tyron other than, he seems like he's very content to do whatever helps the team.
So you expect him back?
Yes.
And you don't know anything in this contract, you guys are paying him right now?
Yeah, I mean, we always do reworks and things of that nature. That could come up with him, but, we have the ability to do that. But right now, we're comfortable where we are.
Sticking with the offensive line, Terrence Steele.
Mm-hmm.
You guys going to have to make some decision about first-round tender or how you're going to move forward with him?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some decisions to make. We'll probably finalize that at some point. Look at John. You want to come take over? Hey, you can take over. Yeah, we've got some, obviously a decision on what we'd tender Terrence. But, obviously he's doing unbelievable with his rehab. He's done as well as anybody, that we've ever had, in terms of his rehab and his diligence. And so we don't expect any hiccups there. And I'm just fortunate to have a young guy like him.
What can he do right now?
That'd be, I probably better get more detail before I get into that. What I do know is he's ahead of schedule.
And does that mean you expect him to be ready for training camp?
Absolutely.
Where do you stand at running back?
Same thing for Tony Pollard.
Where do you stand at that with Pollard and Zeke? Like you got some big decisions to make with those two.
Yeah, I mean, those are things that we'll have to, obviously work through as we move forward. I mean, we hadn't finalized any decisions yet in terms of, what that room's going to look like. But Zeke's a tremendous competitor. He's a guy that who's just a great teammate and a great competitor, and a guy that obviously he's making a lot of money. He knows that, and obviously Tony Pollard's up for free agency, so that's a challenge. But we'll work through that.
Have you had any discussions with Tony's agent yet? And is the franchise tag
No,
on the table for you guys?
but we will this week.
Okay.
We'll be visiting with, all the guys who are free will be visiting with, most of their agents.
Does he make a lot of sense to tag, though, as you try to get a deal done because it comes at a
It's not out of the question, but we certainly hadn't determined whether we'll do that or not. More than likely, we'll use our tag, though. Not necessarily on Tony, but we'll use our tag. Can't tell you. You can go tell somebody.
Stephen, what is it going to take for Mike's transition to play caller to go smoothly? What do you want that process to look like?
Oh, I mean, I got complete faith in Mike. He's won Super Bowls calling plays, a Super Bowl, and he's been to championship games calling plays, so he knows exactly what it takes. And, in his mind, we can be better. We can take the next step on offense. Not that Kellen and, his staff didn't do a great job. We've had a good offense for 2 years, but, obviously we've got to take the next step, get to the next level, and Mike thinks, him calling the plays and installing the offense, there's, as he mentioned, there's probably 15 to 20% of the things, that he kind of respected what Kellen wanted to do and let we went his way. Now he wants to change, that bottom, 15 to 20% that he doesn't agree with and do it more his way.
How did that conversation come about? Did Mike initiate that, or did you guys talk to him about wanting to see this offense move in a direction, and was Kellen on the table at that time?
Mike initiated it.
Do y'all believe Dak needs a new voice?
Do I what?
Believe Dak needs a new voice in his head?
A new voice? I think it always helps to improve. I mean, you'd have to ask Dak that, what he believes. I don't want to speak for Dak. But, I've always, when you're around smart people and, you get to a certain level with somebody, and then I think change can be really good. I let Dak speak to whether he thinks he needs it or not.
Well, I'm saying, but y'all felt comfortable making a decision. I mean,
Yeah, I think
y'all felt that
we can pull that off and think that it can be a big positive for him. And obviously, we think we can take the next step, be a better football team with, some new voices.
Have you guys spoken to Dak since the move to Mike?
Yes.
Is he more receptive to it now? Because it seems that he was loyal to Kellen. So
Yeah, I think, like you said, you need to speak to Dak. I don't want to speak for Dak. He can speak for himself. But I think he's very comfortable with this move.
Did you get his input into that move?
I don't know. I mean, we pretty much, as I said, Mike was recommending this, and Mike's the head coach, and we went with it.
With the offensive coaches, I don't know if they're coming as that to stay back and get going on what the offense is going to
Yeah,
look like,
I mean,
terminology and all.
absolutely. I mean, it's a new install. It's part of the change we're talking about here. And I think, Mike with some new staff members, obviously Coach Schottenheimer taking over as offensive coordinator, having a voice, having a totally new offensive line coach. We're going to be talking about where we can improve. The running game, the passing game, marrying the running game to the passing game, philosophical things. There's a lot of work to be done.
you got a little bit younger on the staff. Was that by design, or is this how it worked itself?
I think that's how it worked out.
What's the strength of having Velasco with his offensive line background as your running backs coach?
Goes to the marrying the run game to the pass game. I just think, I think he's able to, obviously have his own position, which I think he deserves. He's been an assistant O-line coach, but I think some of his duties will be helping Coach Schottenheimer and Mike marry the run game to the pass game.
With the interceptions last year, we would hear sometimes Dak was seeing the defense one way, the receiver another way, especially on those option routes. What will it take to get past that, and what are the ways that in the offseason y'all can work on that?
That's a great question for Mike and Coach Schottenheimer, but that's obviously what they're going to be working on. I think everybody knows if, that hadn't been like Dak to have these interceptions, and I think I read somewhere he said absolutely not going to happen again, according to Dak, but obviously we need to, as an organization, a staff, coaching staff, Coach McCarthy's staff, help him work through those.
Is it safe to say, though, that Mike brought up the idea of wanting to change and call plays, and you guys going with that speaks to your commitment to Mike as your head coach?
Absolutely. I mean, Mike, obviously, for most of his career, he was a play caller. I think he may have given it up briefly, one point in time, but, for the most part, he's been the play caller, and he was the play caller for his tremendous success he had in Green Bay.
So y'all are all in on Mike.
Absolutely.
When we talk a little bit about Dak Prescott, I know you had discussed with Todd this week the desire to extend him. Have you started initiating some of those conversations with Todd France?
No, we haven't.
When do you
Is that something
anticipate?
that will happen here, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, my bet is there's not going to be a lot said about it. We'll wake up one day and it'll be done.
But doesn't it help to sort of get an idea of what you have when we talk about the piece of the pie?
Like I
It helps
said,
the piece of the pie.
well, we've got a plan, and
But you're not
doesn't
gonna tell us
necessarily
what.
always help you to divulge your plans.
Is that why you guys are playing this Zeke situation a little closer to the vest this time around?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, obviously tremendous respect for our players. Not just Zeke, not just Dak, but all of them. We had a really good football team last year and the year before. Unfortunately, we didn't take the next step, and we want to, do some things that'll help us take that next step.
Steve, you release guys like DeMarcus Ware and Des Bryant. What guys that produce so much for you guys, and Zeke has produced a bunch. What's the hardest part of that decision when you guys, not that you're making it with Zeke, but when you have to go down that road?
And it's just, it's always very difficult when you have to make a very difficult business decision that happens to be a consensus in the organization. It's tough. Let go of an Emmitt Smith, a DeMarcus Ware. Those are things that you always lose sleep at night before you do it, because you're wondering if you're doing the right thing. These are great competitors. The two you just mentioned were Hall of Famers. you always second guess yourself when you're letting go, those type of players.
Outside of CD, how would you assess your other receivers right now?
I think we got a solid group. I think Michael Gallup has a great chance to take the next step in terms of what he can do. Coming off a major ACL, I think it's pretty typical. The guys improve from the first year to the second year. There's usually a jump, and I fully expect Michael to do that. And then I think we've got a good competitive group after that. Will we look at maybe improving it? Absolutely.
Did you second guess yourself at all after the Amari Cooper move?
Not really, no. I mean, it was just, that was a tough situation, but, just felt comfortable with what we did and still feel comfortable with it.
Is it fair to say that wide receiver is going to be a position of emphasis this offseason? Because maybe there was some concerns heading into training camp. Maybe that wasn't addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that we're looking hard at it in terms of what we ultimately want the room to look like.
OBJ is still consideration?
I won't get into specifics right now.
Cowboys' development a little slower than what you hoped?
Yeah, you always hope they step in and play, but he's going to develop. He's got the skill set. And he's just got to develop. Came from a small school, and just didn't come along as fast as we would have hoped. But I think his upside's there.
Do you have any specific area needs that you guys are focusing on in the draft and free agency?
Yeah, I mean we've got them, but I'm not gonna. It's a competitive, so I'm not gonna address them. But we've got that all worked out. What we think we need to get in free agency, what we need to, obviously where the draft's strong and that type of thing. Obviously, we try to scratch most of our itches in free agency before we ever get to the draft, so we're not drafting based on need.
Where's the draft strong right now?
I think that's to be determined. I mean, we're just now getting to the combine. You got to watch them work out at the combine. You got to continue to do further study with our scouts. So, I mean, it'd be, an uneducated deal right now to say where it's strong and where it's not strong. I mean, obviously we got a feel for that, but it's too early to predetermine that.
There's
As
so
you
much
stand here today, what gives you the most optimism that you guys can take that next step, you can get past that divisional round of the playoffs?
I think the overall foundation of our football team is strong, real strong. And I think Dak, is the ultimate team leader. I think he's got an insatiable appetite to be great and clean up whatever he needs to clean up. So I think, it all starts with quarterback, and I think we've got ours. And then I think the players around him, we've got a great foundation. I mean, this is a team that I think's won more games other than Kansas City the last 2 years. Where we're not getting it done, obviously, is, putting a string of 3 to 4 games in the playoff together where we play at a high level.
Beyond the free agents that you have coming up, this is the first time you can sign CD and Trayvon. Do you start looking at those guys yet? Would that be a possibility?
You're always looking, at something like that. Looking for the right opportunity, the right situation. Obviously, they're in our plans long term, and always looking.
Is it harder now to make those deals?
It feels like people aren't as, used to be people would be ready to go ahead and do something. It seems like representatives, players are more patient, to wait their turn, and, they feel like they probably got a little more leverage and those type of things. So.
Does that make it more challenging to be a draft and develop organization, given how important it is to retain your own talent and the price goes up when they wait?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd like to get something done early that you're really happy with the deal, but we can do business either way.
Did
Stephen, on
Leighton
that note
Vander
about
Esch do enough to justify bringing him back?
Absolutely. I mean, I thought Leighton had a great year. It'll all just boil down to the economics in terms of, where he ends up. So, but no, he had a hell of a year.
Jabril Cox, we didn't see much of him last year.
Yeah, he's same thing, coming off a major knee injury, and I just think he was, slow to get 100% back. And of course, we ended up signing Barr and bringing him in late, and we had some good options there.
So much talk about running backs, and there's so much talk about whether you should draft a running back in the first round. Do you have a philosophy about running backs and whether they're first round type guys, or would you prefer to get them later in the draft?
I think it depends on what part of the first round. And if you're up there in the top 10, I mean, it's hard to take them there. I mean, because, you definitely, if you're taking a player in the top half, you're hoping you got a player that's going to be here 10 years. And it's tough for running backs to last 10 years. There's not many Emmitt Smiths or guys that play that long.
Has that philosophy switched since Zeke?
I just think it's hard. I mean, we thought Zeke obviously did an amazing job for us. He came in right away and was dominant and helped us win a lot of football games. So I don't second guess that one, but it is hard. Like I said, it's hard for these guys to play 10 years at a very high, at a real high level.
Stephen, you mentioned
26
some of
is
the
not.
climate with representatives. When a guy like Bobby Wagner is representing himself, what changes for you guys in terms of how you pursue that?
Nothing. Just talk directly to the player. So,
I mean, does it change like this week? Would you meet with a player directly versus the agent?
he's probably not going to come in here, no. So
Yeah.
we'd just be, it's more on the phone, and then obviously if we could, if we had interest in a player that's representing himself, then, when free agency starts, hopefully we'd bring him in, and then we'd sit down with him directly and talk to him.
So 26 is a good spot for a running back if you were going to do that. That's not out of the realm. You just-
Yeah, I think once you're into 27, I mean, normally I think we say we've got, 18 to 20 first rounders on the board.
Right.
So usually when you're picking 26, you're pretty lucky if there's still a first rounder left on your board. Usually that's been picked over, and you're taking those players there. And I think it's certainly if the right guy were there and you loved him and you needed him, then you'd take him.
Is there any desire to even give Brett Maher a chance in camp?
That's something we'll continue to discuss.
Cooper Rush?
Same
Markets
thing. We'll
elevated?
continue. Yeah, we'll just see where it ends up. A lot of these guys will, it'll be market dependent, where they end up and what value we put on them versus where they end up in the market.
Where you guys stand today in terms of caliber of play at safety? It's a lot different today than it was a few years ago with Donovan Wilson teaming up. What is that trio, J-Ron and Malik and him, and to be able to potentially get them together again?
I just think they're outstanding. I mean, they're a great safety group. We've obviously, compared to past years, we've had major upgrades in that area. Obviously, Dan had a big to-do in that in terms of his philosophy and what he wanted to get done and his vision for what different players could do. But, we're fortunate to have all three of those guys. I mean, they're, obviously they all three start. We start two linebackers when we start a game, but, it's great to have all three of them. Obviously, a priority to keep them together would be one of our priorities.
How have you kept Dan these last 2 years?
Tell them how much we love him.
Do you consider him a huge free agent signing?
I think he's huge to keep our continuity, absolutely. I mean, this defense just gets better every year. I mean, I think everybody's eyes were opened when we went from one of the worst defenses in the league to one of the best overnight with Dan. And certainly I think we improved from Dan's first year to the second year, and he fully believes it, and I believe we'll improve again. I think we'll have a better defense next year.
Stopping the run better, more consistency, is that?
Yeah, I mean, all that'll come into play, but obviously, you can always, that's, line one going into every game is you want to stop the run and, make them need to throw the football, then things are really working in our favor, with the pass rushers that we have. So, I mean, Dan's got a great plan on how we'll be better, and he's going to have a vision for the type of personnel that, he'll want, and we'll work with our scouting staff to see what we can do to, improve in some areas.
How important has that been to the defense's improvement over these past couple of years? Is the communication between Dan and the front office, the scouts, to create that vision for what he's looking for?
Oh, I just think it's supreme. I mean, one of the things Will mentioned is right away we got to get, the same communication that we've had with Kellen and Dan going with Mike and Coach Schottenheimer, and, there's going to be some changes. Does that affect, what you're looking at, from a personnel standpoint? I think Mike would tell you not a lot in terms of the type of players we're looking for, but there could be some.
When you see what teams like the Eagles did this past offseason, Rams, Bucks, do you feel like you guys have to be any more aggressive, or do you feel that you guys are close enough that you don't have to be as aggressive in the offseason?
I mean, I'd like to hope that we're always aggressive. I'd like to hope, that we can make our team better. I mean, obviously the Philly deal was, hats off to them. They did a great job. I mean, it all started with their quarterback, and I don't think anybody thought Jalen Hurts was going to be the Hurts we saw this year. I mean, he had an MVP type year, and certainly he got, they put him in a system that allowed him, to utilize his skill set and be great.
When you look at your last 2 seasons, Stephen, winning record, visits to the postseason, went even deeper this year. Why the desire to change the coaching staff? Because it felt like you were getting incrementally better every year.
Because
Why
we're
make the move?
not satisfied with the, with where we got to. I mean, we've got to take the next step. I mean, since I guess '95, we hadn't been to a championship game, and so we weren't good enough this year. We have to accept that, and we have to improve. So that gets into looking at your coaching staff, looking at your players, you got to look at everything. Look at what Jerry and I are doing. Everybody's got to check themselves out and see why we're not getting it done.
That was my next question. So it felt like you were fairly aggressive in terms of the decision about your coaches. We can expect the same with players and even the front office.
Absolutely.
Stephen, when you look at how much Micah played on the defensive line last year, I know that y'all like him being a mismatch, a chess piece, not knowing where he's going to be, but did he need to prepare more this offseason to play like he's a defensive lineman, whether that's the pass rush moves or bulking up a little bit?
I think that's something Dan will work with on him. I mean, obviously that's Dan's core, where he's from is that front seven. So I think Dan's got a great plan for him. He's got a great plan for everybody. He's very much into that, sitting down with each player, going over what his vision is for that player and how our defense can be better if they meet those criteria.
Is Tyler Smith a left tackle only now for you?
I mean, Tyler Smith's versatile. I mean, that's what you want in every offensive lineman if you could have it. And Tyron Smith showed he was versatile. Played left tackle and he went and played right tackle. So, it's just a good feeling to know he could bump down and play left guard. If that's what you needed to have your, ultimately have your best 5 out there, then you would consider that. I think it's for his long-term, upside. It's always great for any. I think any offensive lineman would tell you they'd love to stay in one spot. But the real team players and the competitive guys that want to help you win, they're team players, and they'll do something that maybe they prefer not to, but would they do it? Yes.
You mentioned the 18 to 20 first-round grades that you guys have on prospects. Does the expectation change significantly between those first-round guys and second-round guys, especially when you may have a second-round grade?
You got a lot of 2.0 grades on guys, and you got a lot of 1.18s. You don't do 1.19 because they're off your board. If they got a 9 at the end, but no, there's a lot of guys that are just, it's close to whether they're a first-rounder or a top of the second-round pick.
When's the last time you had a pick in the first round that was maybe a second-round grade?
That's a good question. I'd have to go back and look. Look at our last couple of first-rounders. But most of the time we've been fortunate to get the guy, get a first-round grade with our pick.
How do you look at your cap situation and where you guys are needing to move a little bit of money to get under and things? I know it's always fluid, but is it a challenge? Is it something workable? How do you do it?
It's workable. I'd say it's average, in terms of league. I mean, and especially to have a really good football team, pretty pleased with where we are with the cap.
It's comprehensive. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Y'all take care.